There are a lot of talented players in college football who never seem to succeed in the NFL. Many players reach their peak in college and then fall short, whether it's due to their general skill, the system they're in, or even just needing to be able to manage football as their life. Here are my top 25 collegiate athletes who never established themselves, at least positively, in the NFL after reaching their prime in college. Now, this one coming up here, we have David Carr, who played at Fresno State as quarterback, and he was the first overall pick in 2002. Now, David Carr was the Houston Texans' first pick after they established themselves as a club, but he was never given much of a chance to flourish. He eventually received several seasons to perform, but he lost everything, including any lingering swagger. He received sack after sack, but his 70 touchdown passes and 23 interceptions while playing for Fresno State made for remarkable seasons, and his number 8 jersey is now part of Bulldogs history. He received the Unitas and Ball Awards in 2001. Now next up we have Tamanga Biakabutuka, or just Tim Biakabutuka, and he played for Michigan at the running back position, and he was selected 8th overall in the 1996 draft. Now, Tim Biakabutuka had a miserable NFL career because he could never live up to the expectations that were placed on him. The former Michigan running back, who owns most of the rushing yards in the rivalry game between Michigan and Ohio State with 313 yards, had high expectations for his first season. Now, next up, we have Andre Ware coming out of Houston, and he was the 7th overall pick in the 1990 draft. And Andre Ware was a collegiate quarterback of the highest caliber who frequently set the scoreboard into overdrive. In 1989, he helped the Cougars become a household name by winning the Heisman Trophy. The Detroit Lions selected Ware 7th overall, but his NFL career was brief. He ended with 5 touchdown passes and 8 interceptions before going on to help the Toronto Argonauts win the 1997 Grey Cup of the Canadian Football League. Now next up we have Terry Baker, who played for Oregon State as a quarterback, and he was the first overall pick in 1963. The only player to ever win the Heisman and participate in the Final Four of men's basketball in the same season is Terry Baker, who did it in 1962. Most players never even attempt to play both sports. The Heisman Trophy winners' 2 seasons with the LA Rams included 154 yards, 4 interceptions, and absolutely no touchdown passes. Now next up we have Todd Blacklidge coming out of Penn State as a quarterback, and he was the 7th overall pick in 1983. The 1983 de facto national championship game MVP, who led Penn State to victory over Georgia, did not fare well in the NFL. Todd Blacklidge is a fantastic college football analyst and broadcaster, but his NFL career was short-lived with the Kansas City Chiefs and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now next up we have Jason White coming out of Oklahoma, and he was a quarterback, and he actually was undrafted in 2005. Now, Jason White was a fantastic quarterback for the Oklahoma Sooners, even though he never appeared on an NFL field. Along with winning the Davey O'Brien, Associated Press, Sporting News, Maxwell, Johnny Unitas, and NCAA quarterback awards in 2003, he also won the Heisman Trophy and was a unanimous All-American. It was unfortunate that White's Sooners could not defeat LSU or USC in either of their 2 BCS appearances for the national championship. That did not, however, negate what White accomplished in Norman. He was an undrafted free agent with a history of knee problems, and the Tennessee Titans added him to their practice squad and roster for the offseason. He never participated in a down for them, and he later went on to create his own company in Oklahoma. Now next up we have Archie Griffin, who's coming out of Ohio State, who played running back for them, and he was the 24th overall pick in 1976. Now, Archie Griffin is still the only college football player to have ever won back-to-back Heisman Awards. No one else has ever won the Heisman twice, and it's unlikely that anyone will ever pull off such a near impossible feat again. Griffin was a legend with the Buckeyes, making it difficult to be invited twice. Before joining the USFL, the former Ohio State running back spent 7 seasons with the Cincinnati Bengals. Now next up here we have Ken Stouffer coming out of Colorado State, who played quarterback, and he was the 6th overall pick in 1987. And Kelly Stouffer, who currently works as an ESPN Plus and Versus analyst, had a miserable NFL career. Although his stats of 7 touchdowns and 19 interceptions seem terrible, his ailments and poor performance ultimately brought him to an end. Now next up we have Jamal Reynolds coming out of Florida State, who played defensive end and was the 10th overall pick in 2001. There will be a few Seminoles on this list, since more often than not, the expectations were really high. Jamal Reynolds, a top 10 pick by the Packers in 2001, was unable to duplicate the one season he had at FSU at any point in his NFL career. Next up we have Rashaan Salaam coming out of Colorado as a running back, who was the 21st overall pick in 1995. Now, in 1994, a huge bruising running back for the Colorado Buffaloes, who could move rather well in Boulder, was selected as an undisputed All-American. The fact that Rashaan Salaam had such a memorable season for Colorado was demonstrated by his Heisman Trophy, Jim Brown, Walter Camp, and Doak Walker wins. His team finished 11-1, and its victory over Notre Dame in the Fiesta Bowl earned it the number 3 spot in the final polls. He was chosen by the Chicago Bears as the 21st overall pick, but it did not take long for him to turn out to be a complete flop. Salaam struggled with fumbling and only started 21 of the 33 games he participated in, although he did finish with 13 touchdowns, so that's a little bit of an upside for his career. Now next we have Alonzo Highsmith coming out of Miami, who was a running back and was the 3rd overall pick in 1987. Alonzo Highsmith, a star for the U in the 1980s, was selected 3rd overall by the Houston Oilers. He was one of the biggest running back busts in NFL history, with 10 total touchdowns in his 6-year career. Now next up we have Mike Williams coming out of Texas. He was an offensive tackle and was selected 4th overall in 2002. Now, since he had just completed a career as a unanimous All-American in 2001, it was expected that this tough beast from Texas would immediately make the Pro Bowl. Due to his inability to block, the Bills, Jaguars, and Redskins all came to the conclusion that he was a total bust at tackle and guard. Now next up we have Brian Bosworth coming out of Oklahoma, and he was a linebacker, and he was selected in the 1st round of the supplemental draft in 1987. Now the middle of the 1980s saw Bos play linebacker for the Boomer Sooner football team. Bosworth, who was a unanimous All-American in 1985 and 1986, was ultimately dismissed from the Sooners team following a positive steroid test. Despite having to join the NFL supplemental draft, he remained one of the most outstanding linebackers in college football history. In 3 seasons, from 1987 to 1989, with the Seattle Seahawks, he played in just 24 games and recorded just 4 sacks after winning the Dick Butkus Award in both 1985 and 1986, and was all Big 8 in 1984, 85, and 86. Now next up, we have Ken Dorsey, coming out of Miami, who played quarterback and was selected with the 241st overall pick in 2003. Now, Ken Dorsey was a tremendously successful quarterback for the Miami Hurricanes before taking a job as a pro scout with the Carolina Panthers. The 3-time first-team All-Big East quarterback went on to win 38 games as a starter, leading his club to 2 BCS championships, going 1-0, and making 2 Heisman Finals. He also holds a number of other Canes records, and he was the most reliable college quarterback we've seen throughout the BCS era. As a quarterback, or as a backup quarterback, mostly 3rd string, in his brief NFL career, Dorsey threw 8 touchdown passes and 18 interceptions. Now next up, we have Pat Sullivan, coming out of Auburn, who played quarterback and was selected with the 40th overall pick in 1972. Due to his several record-breaking performances for the Auburn Tigers under famous coach Chuck Jordan, the 1971 Heisman Trophy winner defeated Cornell running back Ed Marinaro. Sullivan coached Auburn to 26-7 record during his tenure. but it was 1970 when he established a record for the most yards per play with 8.57 and topped the country in total offense with 2,856 yards. He scored 75 touchdowns in his Auburn career, but he is better recognized for his coaching career spanning from 1992 to 1997, and then again in 2007 to present day. Then, to his brief NFL career, which lasted from 1972 to 1977. And up next, the guy that Pat Sullivan beat for the Heisman Trophy, Ed Marinaro, who played for Cornell and was a running back, and he was selected with the 50th overall pick in 1972. Yes, the renowned Blue Mountain State Mountain Goats head coach is still regarded as one of the game's most underappreciated running backs. While Marinaro played ball with the best of them while at Cornell, Blue Mountain State may be one of the best, at least recently, college football television series. He is still among the most successful running backs in Ivy League and collegiate football history. Can he receive some affection? Pat Sullivan, the quarterback for Auburn, won the 1971 Heisman Trophy with 1,597 votes to Marinaro's 1,445. But Marinaro still maintains two marks that may never be broken. I doubt they ever will be. In his career, 1969 to 1971, Marinaro carried the ball 34 times on average each game, and he still maintains a record with 39.6 carries in a single season. As of 1971, he reached 2 Super Bowls while playing for 3 teams from 1972 to 1977 with the Vikings, Jets, and Seahawks, and was coached by the famous Bud Grant. Marinaro had a brief career and only managed to score 13 touchdowns. Marinaro, despite being rightfully elected into the College Football Hall of Fame in 1991, continues to be grossly underappreciated. Now next up we have Joey Harrington coming out of Oregon, who played quarterback and was selected 3rd overall in the 2002 draft. Now this quarterback for the Oregon Ducks won the Pac-10 Offensive Player of the Year in 2001, and he graced the cover of EA Sports' NCAA football in 2003. He had 79 touchdown passes and 85 interceptions throughout the course of his NFL career, which spanned the teams Lions, Dolphins, Falcons, and Saints from 2002 to 2008. Now next up we have Charles Rogers, who attended Michigan State as a wide receiver and was the 2nd overall pick in the 2003 draft. The BCS era's most electrifying receiver, this former great was recognized by Michigan State as a consensus All-American in 2002 and twice named to the first team All-Big Ten. Charles Rogers had 25 receiving touchdowns in 2 seasons while playing for the Spartans in East Lansing, but he is better recognized for the things he was unable to accomplish in the NFL. Rogers barely participated in 15 games, scored just 4 touchdowns, and then vanished after repeatedly testing positive for drugs. And funny enough, in my grandpa's jersey collection, he did have a Charles Rogers jersey, so I do have a Charles Rogers jersey, but yeah, I'm not really sure. I mean, yeah, when I did my research on him, it just kind of seemed like drug use was a problem for him while he was in the NFL, and just ended up not really working out with his career. Next up we have Peter Warrick, coming out of Florida State as a wide receiver, and he was the 4th pick in the 2000 draft. Now, Peter Warrick resembled Larry Fitzgerald before Fitz had even started playing varsity football, thanks to his acrobatic catches during the 1999 regular season. Warrick, whose 32 touchdown receptions remain the most in FSU history, had his share of Tecmo Bowl Bo Jackson moments. He also established a few additional records, and during the 1998 and 1999 seasons, pretty much everyone on the planet regarded him as a first-team All-American. However, his NFL professional career swiftly came to an end as he managed just 18 career touchdowns receptions for the Bengals and Seahawks. He has recently played in the CFL, AFL, and UFL, but is currently a free agent. Now next up we have Troy Williamson coming out of South Carolina. as a wide receiver, and he was the 7th overall pick in 2005. Running a 4.32 in the 40-yard sprint at the Combine, Troy Williamson was a standout for South Carolina in the Southeastern Conference. However, he had a terrible time in the NFL, 4 career receiving touchdowns, and he never really made an impact. Next up, we have Blair Thomas coming out of Penn State as a running back, and he was selected with the 2nd overall pick in 1990. Blair Thomas, the 2nd overall pick in the 1990 NFL Draft, missed Kurt Warner's Penn State rushing record by just 97 yards. Nevertheless, despite those horrifying stats, Thomas did not amount to much because his career-long rushing touchdown total was only 7. Next up, we have Trev Alberts coming out of Nebraska as a linebacker, and he was the 5th overall pick in 1994. Trev Alberts excelled as a linebacker for the Huskers in college, but he never made it to the NFL. He participated in just 29 games, starting just 7 of them, and made 69 tackles. The Indianapolis Colts from 1994 to 1996 enjoyed a brief tenure with a consensus All-American from 1993. Now next up we have Lawrence Phillips coming out of Nebraska as a running back, and he was the 6th overall pick in 1996. Lawrence Phillips was a star player under Tom Osborne at Nebraska, and despite being suspended for allegedly attacking his ex-girlfriend, Phillips participated in the team's triumph over Florida in the 1996 National Championship. On 25 carries, he torched the Gators for 165 yards and 2 touchdowns, which propelled him into the NFL 1 year early. It was eventually a sad end for such a gifted football player because the Cornhuskers running back at the time had even more problems off the field. And next up we have Art Schlichter coming out of Ohio State as a quarterback, and he was the 4th overall pick in 1982. This former standout quarterback for the Buckeyes in Big Ten has far too many problems to succeed as a quarterback in the NFL. His 3 touchdowns and 11 interceptions were horrendous, but so were his issues with drugs, gambling, and bankruptcy. Just a side note, he was initially suspended for 1 season and was never allowed to play again in the NFL. And last but not least, we have Curtis Ennis, Penn State running back, who was selected with the 5th overall pick in the 1995 draft. And the Penn State running back, another unanimous All-American in 1997, ended up becoming yet another bust pick by the Chicago Bears in his short NFL career. Ennis only scored a touchdown 6 times. And that'll be all for today's episode. Let me know if you guys want another part with a list of more college athletes that have kind of been forgotten or just ended up being busts in the NFL. But again, just let me know down in the comments below. While you're down there, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I believe we're just a little over 10 subscribers away from 300. Let me go ahead and check it out. We're 11 subscribers away from hitting that 300 mark. So if you could subscribe, that'd be greatly appreciated. Also, make sure you hit that like button. Again, that would also be greatly appreciated. And if you're listening on the podcast version, go ahead and leave the podcast a follow and a 5-star review. That would also be greatly appreciated. But without further ado, that'll be it for today's episode. Thank you all for watching or listening, and have a great rest of your day. Bye.